The adopted son hated me for 18 years. He was convinced I had caused his birth mother's death, so he brought a beggar covered in sores to ruin my virtue. On the day I was taken to be drowned in the pond, he stood on the shore, watching me coldly, each word cutting like a knife. You know what, every time I call you mother, I feel so sick I want to vomit. Letting you have one last moment of happiness before you die, consider it repayment for your 18 years of raising me. When he opened his eyes again, I had actually been reborn as his ill-fated birth mother. Looking at my swollen belly, I turned and walked into the herbal medicine shop. Shopkeeper, prepare me the strongest abortion potion. This child must not be allowed to live. Water kept rushing into my mouth and nose. My hands were already tied behind my back. Every struggle brought excruciating pain. The instinct to survive made me desperately tilt my head upward. My vision gradually blurred, leaving only two figures on the shore still sharply visible. They stood side by side, their gazes as distant as if looking at an unrelated object. Why? I opened my mouth. The foul-smelling pond water rushed in immediately, choking my feeble cry. Why? I taught you to read and understand reason. Poured my heart and soul into you, only for you to meticulously choose beggars to tarnish my innocence. Why? I respected and loved you, managed household affairs for you, only to receive your cold indifference as I went to my death unjustly. 18 years of maternal devotion, 20 years of marital affection, turned out to be nothing but a complete farce. One hates me to the bone, the other treats me like worthless trash. Despair cuts deeper than winter's pond water. If heaven has eyes, if only I could start anew, I swear I'll make them die horribly. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. When he opened his eyes again, someone was pressing down on me, their warm hands roaming across my skin. Must I endure this humiliation even in death? The hatred pent up inside me erupted instantly. I shoved the person off me with all my strength and slapped them hard across the face. Smack! A burning pain shot through my palm. I froze in place. Not a dream. By the dim candlelight, I finally saw the man's face clearly. It wasn't that beggar covered in festering sores, but rather my husband, Xie Qingyang. His left cheek bore a vivid handprint as he stared at me in stunned bewilderment. What's wrong, Rui? Is the baby in your belly bothering you? Baby in my belly? I followed his gaze and looked down. There was clearly a protruding belly. Seeing my silence, Xie Qingyang grew even more anxious. What's wrong exactly? Rui, say something. His handsome face was filled with concern, a stark contrast to his cold indifference on the day of the pond drowning. Almost without thinking, I raised my hand and aimed at his right cheek, then delivered an even louder slap. Taking advantage of Xie Qingyang's stunned moment, I pushed him away and rushed straight to the bronze mirror, not even bothering to put on my shoes. The bronze mirror reflected a face that was both familiar and strange to me, a petite face no larger than a palm, skin as white as snow, eyes misty and delicate. She looked utterly fragile and helpless. This face belongs to Jiang Rui. That short-lived white moonlight from a past life, existing only in the words of their father and son. I looked at her, she looked at me, an overwhelming sense of absurdity washed over me. I could no longer hold back and let out a low, bitter laugh. The laughter grew louder and louder, almost laughing to the point of tears. Heavens, you've been kind to me. I have been reborn, reborn as the white moonlight of this father and son, the very source of this tragedy. Wonderful, truly wonderful, in my past life. I died on the happiest day of my life. It was the wedding day of my adopted son Xiezishu, whom I cherished as my own. As he and his bride bowed before me, I felt 18 years of hardships had finally come to fruition. Joy overwhelmed my senses. I drank several more cups at the banquet. Soon I grew tipsy and was helped back to my chambers by maidservants. I woke up again. I found myself completely unclothed, my body covered in unspeakable marks. A pus-oozing beggar was writhing wantonly on top of me. My mind went completely blank. Before I could react, the door was smashed open. The Xie father and son stood there with a hall full of guests. I stammered incoherently, trying to explain. No, it's not like this. I drank wine. I was framed. Mother. Xiezishu cut me off with profound grief. His eyes filled with disappointment. At this point, are you still going to make excuses? Months ago, Your son witnessed you pulling and tugging with this beggar at the back gate, out of mother-son affection. I pleaded with you earnestly, thinking you would turn back from your misguided path. Who could have imagined you would go from bad to worse, committing such disgraceful acts on my wedding day, shaming the ancestors of the Xie family? His words pronounced my guilt beyond any doubt. I had no way to defend myself, tied with stones amid the curses of thousands, and drowned in the pond. But the story doesn't end here. Perhaps my towering resentment had nowhere to dissipate after death. My soul refused to scatter, drifting day after day through the Xie manor. 3 months later, Xie Qingyang then married his second wife. Not only did this second wife bear a striking resemblance to Jiang Ruyi, about 70 to 80% alike, she also came with a son of her own. The child was named Xie Ping'an. He looked exactly like Xie Qingyang, as if carved from the same mold. The identity of his biological father goes without saying. Xie Qingyang acknowledged him as the legitimate eldest son and recorded him in the family genealogy. Xie Zishu went from being the sole legitimate eldest son of the Xie household to becoming the neglected second son, unloved by both father and mother. The stepmother whispered in Xie Qingyang's ear day and night. Xie Zishu gradually fell out of favor with Xie Qingyang. Servants are most adept at judging people's status and acting accordingly. Xie Zishu's daily necessities were withheld. His trusted aides were reassigned, and he found himself struggling to survive within the household. Even the shops I had left him were all sweet-talked away by the stepmother and transferred to the name of her own biological son. At this moment, he finally remembered my goodness. In the 2nd year after my death, he got dead drunk and stumbled into his new wife's room in a daze, clinging to her thigh and crying out for mother. The new wife immediately tore her clothes and screamed. Accusing him of attempted assault, Xie Qingyang flew into a rage and expelled him from the Xie manor. The once illustrious young master of the Xie family ultimately froze to death on the streets, his corpse gnawed beyond recognition by stray dogs, snapping back to reality. I stared at Xie Qingyang before me, whose face was symmetrically swollen on both sides. That surge of hatred churned violently within me once again. I couldn't hold back. He swung his hand back and delivered another slap. Jiang Ruyi, have you had enough of this nonsense? Do you really think I won't do anything to you? Xie Qingyang could no longer maintain his gentle facade. Clutching his face, he growled through gritted teeth, his eyes brimming with unrestrained fury. Crazy? Fine, I'll show you crazy. I lunged at him, fists pounding viciously against his chest, and screamed at the top of my lungs. Yes, I am crazy. You drove me to this. Tears rolled down my cheeks. My nails dug deep into his flesh. I'm carrying your child, yet I remain your secret mistress without even a proper title. Xie Qingyang, tell me, what's the difference between me and those prostitutes being toyed with in brothels? Xie Qingyang seized my wrist with crushing force, as if he meant to shatter my bones. He stared fixedly at my face, his eyes swirling with complex emotions. The next moment, to my surprise, he lowered his head and pressed a kiss to my swollen wrist. Ruyi, did hitting me hurt your hand? He pulled my trembling body into his embrace, resting his chin atop my head, and let out a long sigh. So you've been throwing tantrums about entering the manor, didn't we settle this long ago? His voice was deep, laced with temptation. Once you've safely delivered our child, I'll make a grand spectacle escorting you into the manor with an 8-lifter palanquin as my equal wife, sharing equal status with Su Wanqing. I struggled violently to break free from his embrace. Why must we wait? Why not now? Because Su Wanqing is a venomous woman. His expression turned grave. Filled with concern, the Su family holds immense power, deeply entrenched in the capital. If they learn of your and the child's existence now, they'll stop at nothing to eliminate you, Ruyi. I've already lost you once. I can't take any more risks. He cupped my face in his hands, his gaze earnest. You can resent me, hate me, hit me, or scold me, I don't care. But I must first ensure absolute safety for you and our child. Nothing in this world matters more than you two. He patiently coaxed me for what felt like ages. At last, as if utterly worn down by my antics, he finally relented and promised. All right, stop crying, my little ancestor. Once I return from overseeing the flood control efforts in Jiangnan this time, the very first thing I'll do is bring you into the manor. Will that finally set your mind at ease? Only then did I stop crying. nodding reluctantly with lingering dissatisfaction. Xie Qingyang gave detailed instructions to the servants to take good care of things. Only then did she reluctantly turn and leave. At this time in her previous life, Xie Qingyang had indeed been sent to Jiangnan to manage flood control. He was gone for 3 whole months. Shortly after his return, Jiang Rui died in childbirth, holding the swaddled infant Xie in his arms. He told me this was the orphan child of a deceased friend and wished to adopt him. At that time, Xie Qingyang and I had been married for 5 years without conceiving a child. Tormented by this, I consented. From that moment on, I treated Xie as my own child. Never did I imagine I was raising a venomous snake with my own hands, but now. I raised my hand and slowly touched my swollen belly. The evil creature inside seemed to sense the killing intent and stirred uneasily. Xie, go be reborn again. I entered the most renowned medical hall in the city. Through the veil of my hat, I spoke hoarsely to the elderly physician seated in the hall. Doctor, prescribe me an abortifacient, the strongest kind. The old doctor, with hair and beard white as snow, was cautious and insisted on taking my pulse first. His fingers rested on my wrist, and his brow furrowed deeper and deeper. Finally withdrew his hand and shook his head repeatedly. Xiao times who be, bot file anti-times theft printing, find book, times robot choose Xiao times who, stable and reliable, no stepping times into pits. Madam, your constitution was already weak and cold, deficient in both qi and blood. Now the fetus has grown large. His tone was grave. If we forcibly administer potent abortifacients, I fear it may cause unstoppable hemorrhaging, risking both mother and child. This medicine, this old physician absolutely dares not prescribe. Refusing to accept defeat, I visited several more clinics in succession. I even sought out those underground physicians hidden in dark alleys. Yet all the physicians' diagnoses were eerily identical. The pregnancy is too advanced. The mother's body too frail. Terminating it would be tantamount to suicide. I lowered my gaze to stare at that unwelcome bulge. Furious, I raised my hand and punched down hard, almost simultaneously. That little demon in my belly kicked back. A sharp pain shot through my lower abdomen. This damned thing that just won't die. Whatever, we'll deal with it when it emerges. Right now, I have more important matters to attend to. In the main hall, Madame Su Wanqing of the Xie residence sat gracefully in the host seat, exuding noble elegance. Her gaze swept over my entire body before finally settling on my swollen belly, her fingers unconsciously tightening their grip on the armrest. You're saying, you're the woman my husband has been keeping outside. Her voice remained steady, but her expression grew inscrutably dark. Do you have any proof, or is this just empty talk? I didn't answer immediately, instead casting a glance at the maids and servants surrounding her. Su Wanqing understood my meaning and waved impatiently. All of you, leave. Only when the hall contained just the two of us, I slowly began to speak. He has a cinnabar birthmark on his left chest, on his right buttock. There's an old scar about 3 fingers long. Su Wanqing's hand holding the teacup trembled almost imperceptibly before she let out a cold laugh and slammed the cup heavily onto the table. Ha, is that all? It wouldn't be hard to bribe the servants attending him for such information. Is this all you've got? Daring to slander the Xie family. Do you know how many like you I've beaten to death? Watching her put on this fierce but cowardly act, I suddenly laughed. Fortunately, Su Wanqing's body wasn't inhabited by Jiang Rui, but rather my 18 years younger self, who hadn't yet weathered life storms. She was somewhat annoyed. What are you laughing at? Do you really think I wouldn't dare to do anything to you? I abruptly changed the subject. When you were 3 years old, you let go of your nanny's hand because you craved the candied hawthorns from old Lee's shop on East Street, and nearly got kidnapped by traffickers, on a summer day when you were 7. You took advantage of your cousin Su Mingqi's nap to secretly pull down his pants and smear a thick layer of locust flower honey on his private parts, causing wild bees to chase him all over the courtyard. From then on, he stayed away from women. When you were 10, you secretly trimmed the teacher's goatee. Shut up. Don't say another word. Su Wanqing sprang up from her chair. All her earlier composure vanished as her pointing finger trembled slightly at me. Who exactly are you? How do you know all these things? I looked into her panicked eyes and spoke slowly, word by word. I am you, to be precise. I am you 18 years later, the you who was driven to death by your husband and adopted son, only to claw her way back from hell." Su Wanqing's eyes widened, her lips trembling slightly, finally spat out 2 words, "Madman." I laid bare all my experiences from these 18 years. Su Wanqing's brows furrowed tighter. What a beautifully crafted story. She forced an ugly smile. "Which bookstore did you buy it from? I'd like to take a look too." Watching her trembling body, I sighed. My voice tinged with a hint of pity. "Go see an outside physician. Don't use the one kept by the manor. Xie Qingyang has been slipping sterilizing drugs into your decoction all these years." She suddenly looked up, her pupils contracting sharply. "I won't force you to believe me now." I pushed the written note across the table. "I live at Huai Tree Lane in the West District. Come find me whenever you realize you're truly living a lie." With that, I turned away without looking at her pale face and left. Now she remains the cherished pearl of the Su family, still living in the gentle trap meticulously crafted by Xie Qingyang. In an instant, it's only natural that she couldn't accept it. Past life. It took me a long time after death to realize. Turns out, Jiang Rui was also just a substitute. The true white moonlight in his heart was named Liu Ruyan. They were childhood sweethearts, betrothed from birth. Unfortunately, the Liu family was impeached by my father's disciple for grave corruption charges, ultimately resulting in their entire household being confiscated and exiled. Liu Ruyan fell ill accidentally during the exile journey and passed away like fading incense. From that moment on, Xie Qingyang counted this blood debt against the Su family. His marriage to me was, from beginning to end, nothing but a carefully calculated act of revenge. Jiang Rui became the apple of Xie Qingyang's eye simply because her looks bore a 70% resemblance to Liu Ruyan. Through Jiang Rui, he was gazing at another woman. If Liu Ruyan had truly died, Jiang Rui might have been able to live a stable and wealthy life wearing this face. Yet fate plays cruel tricks. When Xie Qingyang was ordered to supervise flood control in Jiangnan, he unexpectedly encountered Liu Ruyan again. Not only was she alive, but she had secretly borne him a son. All these years, to raise their son, Liu Ruyan had even resorted to selling herself in a brothel. What a heart-wrenching tale of enduring humiliation for the sake of love and duty. Xie Qingyang was utterly moved. He immediately redeemed Liu Ruyan from her indentured status and secretly brought her back to the capital, keeping her as his hidden treasure. A legitimate wife from a prominent family was one thing. But there was also this outside woman, who resembled him strikingly and was about to give birth. How could Liu Ruyan endure it? Thus, beneath Liu Ruyan's tears, Xie Qingyang decided to keep the child but discard the mother. On the night Jiang Rui gave birth, she died from postpartum hemorrhage. As for why I managed to live those extra 18 years, it wasn't that Xie Qingyang had a soft heart. Rather, it was because my Su family had deep roots and widespread influence. With disciples and old acquaintances throughout the court and beyond, my father was an upright official, cautious and meticulous, leaving no room for fault. He couldn't touch the Su family, so he had no choice but to play the role of a devoted husband, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the day the Su family falls into ruin. 3 days later at dusk, the courtyard gate was gently knocked. I opened the door to see Su Wanqing standing alone in the twilight. She wore plain clothes without makeup. Her eyes swollen red from crying, she looked up at me, her voice hoarse beyond recognition. What finally happened to the Su family? I remained silent for a moment before answering in a low voice. The entire family exiled 3,000 miles, men conscripted to garrison the frontiers, women enslaved into servitude. None were spared, except you. These words became the final straw that crushed all her remaining strength. Her legs gave way as she nearly collapsed to the ground, tears flooding forth uncontrollably. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. It was I who brought the wolf into our home, I who doomed our family. If only I hadn't insisted on marrying him. I quickly stepped forward and pulled her into a tight embrace. She burst into tears in my arms. It's not your fault. You simply loved with all your heart. The fault lies with that scheming bastard who took advantage of you and betrayed your sincerity. I cupped her face in my hands, looked straight into her eyes, and spoke word by word. He is the one who most deserves to die. Xie Qingyang had been feeling that nothing was going his way lately. Those colleagues who used to greet him with smiles and address him as brothers in official circles now either avoided his gaze or simply pretended not to see him. He had painstakingly researched for a month to draft this flawless flood control strategy, confident it was impeccable, and was just about to present it to claim credit. Yet, to his shock, he learned that his sworn rival Xiao Linyuan had already submitted an almost identical proposal days earlier. The emperor even appointed Xiao Linyuan to oversee the flood control efforts, and Xie Qingyang, instead of leading, was relegated to being his deputy, forced to follow his orders. How could he swallow this insult? In a frantic hurry, he went to the Su family, hoping they could mediate for him. Yet the Su family, who had once treated him with great kindness, now made all sorts of excuses, clearly unwilling to lift a finger for him anymore. Left with no other choice, he could only write a letter to Su Wanqing. He knew full well that given Su Wanqing's infatuation with him, she would undoubtedly spare no effort to mobilize the Su family's connections on his behalf. Yet after the letter was sent, it sank like a stone into the sea, with no response. Disgraced in officialdom, cold-shouldered by his in-laws, even Su Wanqing ignored him now. Xie Qingyan's heart was heavy with unresolved emotions, a restless anger with nowhere to vent. He could only seek solace in the warmth of fragrant embraces. Amidst this sea of powdered faces and silken robes, he unexpectedly caught sight of a familiar figure. Liu Ruyan stood on stage cradling her peeper, softly chanting and singing. Years of longing transformed into passionate embraces within the bedchamber. Several days thereafter, Xie Qingyang became utterly immersed in this haven of tenderness. The couple indulged in passionate lovemaking, losing all sense of time. Soon, a memorial impeaching him reached the emperor's ears. Officials consorting with courtesans was already taboo, let alone during an imperial mission to control floods. The emperor was furious. Xie Qingyang was demoted 3 ranks in succession. He was ordered to return to the capital immediately. Years of painstaking effort to build his career were destroyed in an instant. In the end, Xie Qingyang still couldn't bear to part with Liu Ruyan and their child. He used his connections to forge entirely new household registrations for them. Liu Ruyan changed her name to Shenyang. He secretly hid the mother and son in an extremely secluded courtyard in the capital. From then on, they lived happily together as a family of 3. Thus, his visits to the Xie residence naturally grew fewer and farther between, let alone stepping foot into the courtyard of this substitute me, and this suited both Su Wanqing and me just fine. We had long since replaced all the servants in our respective courtyards. Those who remain now are all tight-lipped individuals with clean backgrounds. My belly grows larger day by day, the fetal movements grow increasingly frequent and vigorous. If this belly weren't attached to me, I'd want to punch back at him through the skin. Su Wanqing often came to visit me, perhaps knowing she would never have children of her own. She was especially curious about my belly. One day, she was chatting with my belly with great interest. I looked up at her and asked softly, "About time, isn't it?" Her fingers paused lightly on my belly. She nodded firmly. 2 days later, at midnight, the candlelight flickered in the inner chamber of the secluded courtyard. Xie Qingyang was passionately thrusting atop Liu Ruyan, lost in ecstasy. Suddenly, the door was kicked open. Su Wanqing stood cold-faced at the threshold, leading several stout maidservants armed with clubs. Xie Qingyang was scared out of his wits, scrambling clumsily off Liu Ruyan's body. "Madam, how did you get here?" Su Wanqing's gaze slowly swept over Liu Ruyan curled up on the bed, finally settling back on Xie Qingyang's panic-stricken face. "If I hadn't come, how would I have known you've been keeping another home outside?" "Madam, you misunderstand," Xie Qingyang stammered incoherently in defense. I drank too much tonight, my mind's muddled." "Drunk?" Su Wanqing let out a derisive laugh. Her voice dripping with sarcasm, she raised her hand and slammed several confidential letters onto his face. "Take a look at these then." Still drunk, the letter papers were scattered all over the floor. Xie Qingyang looked down and instantly turned deathly pale. "Xiao Linyuan has already obtained secret reports. You've been harboring fugitives and forging official documents. The evidence is irrefutable. Tomorrow morning at court, he'll accuse you of deceiving the emperor." Su Wanqing reprimanded sharply. "Do you think you have enough heads to spare? If my father's men hadn't intercepted this message beforehand, You'd be rotting in the Ministry of Justice's dungeon by now. Xie Qingyang completely panicked, his knees buckling as he collapsed to the ground, clutching Su Wanqing's legs while wailing, my lady, save me. I truly didn't know she was an exiled criminal. I'll send her away immediately, far away where I'll never see her again, send her away." Su Wanqing looked down at him with disdain in her eyes. "Xiao Linyuan's men have had their eyes on you for a long time. Sending her out of the city now would be a death sentence. Then, what should we do?" Xie Qingyang raised his head, his eyes filled with despair. Su Wanqing fell silent for a moment. "Only the dead don't talk." Xie Qingyang shuddered involuntarily, his gaze instinctively drawn to Liu Ruyan on the bed, whose tear-streaked face resembled rain-drenched pear blossoms. A flicker of reluctance passed through his eyes. "What?" Su Wanqing bent down, lifting his chin with her fingertips. "Husband, are you so reluctant to part? Could it be, you've truly fallen for this woman?" "No, absolutely not." Xie Qingyang hastily shook his head in denial, cold sweat beading on his forehead. "My heart belongs only to my wife. But after all, it's a human life, weighed against your own future and survival, and even the fate of the entire Xie clan." Su Wanqing straightened up, her voice icy cold. "Husband, choose." Xie Qingyang slumped to the ground, his eyes filled with anguish and struggle. Liu Ruyan wept softly beside him. "Qingyang, don't." He closed his eyes. When my eyes opened again, they held nothing but ruthless determination. "Everything shall be as Madam commands." Outside the chamber door, I concealed myself in the shadows. Through the crack in the door, I watched coldly all that transpired within, in this lifetime. Xie Qingyang personally pushed his cherished moonlight into hell. Su Wanqing threw a dagger at Xie Qingyang's feet. "Husband, please proceed." Liu Ruyan widened her eyes in terror and screamed, "Ah Yang, you can't do this to me. We still have Ping'an. Think of our child." Before the words had fully left his mouth, a flash of ruthlessness passed through Xie Qingyang's eyes. The dagger in his hand swiftly sliced across her neck. Blood sprayed across the entire bed. Liu Ruyan widened her eyes in disbelief before collapsing onto the bed, lifeless. Su Wanqing's tone was indifferent. "That face of hers will always be a hidden danger." Xie Qingyang heard this. Once more raising the dagger, I slashed madly at Liu Ruyan's face with vicious force. Cut after cut, I hid to the side, squinting my eyes, watching as a small, slender figure rushed in and slammed fiercely into Xie Qingyang. It was Xie Ping'an. He witnessed Xie Qingyang killing his own mother. His childish face filled with hatred. "You evil person, you killed my mother, I'll kill you." Su Wanqing frowned displeasedly. "Where did this bastard come from?" "Someone, madam." Xie Qingyang hurriedly crawled forward on his knees, clutching her skirt hem in desperate plea. "Please show mercy, the child is innocent." Su Wanqing looked down at his disheveled appearance with a meaningful smile, yet remained silent. Xie Qingyang gritted his teeth. "Madam, if you'll just spare this child, I'll obey you in everything from now on. I'll do whatever you ask." "Oh, truly?" Su Wanqing leaned down and whispered something in his ear. Xie Qingyang's face drained of color as he stood frozen for a moment. In the end, he yielded. With trembling hands, he humiliatingly pulled his trousers down to his knees, exposing his shameful parts. Su Wanqing gave a meaningful glance. The maids promptly dragged the crying and struggling Xie Ping'an out of the courtyard. Only then did she leisurely pick up the dagger stained with Liu Ruyan's blood from the ground. With a flick of her wrist, cold steel flashed menacingly, flesh curled back, blood gushed forth. Xie Qingyang trembled violently from the pain, yet clenched his teeth tightly, not daring to let out the slightest whimper. Soon, the tenderest flesh on his inner thigh bore a bloody character. Su Wanqing was utterly satisfied. She tossed aside the dagger and wiped her fingertips clean with a handkerchief. "Husband, remember to clean up properly." She turned and walked out the door, sharing a knowing smile with me in the shadows. The courtyard quickly caught fire. It devoured everything that couldn't bear the light of day. Harboring fugitives was a grave crime. As Xie Qingyang's lawfully wedded wife, Su Wanqing would be equally doomed if the truth came to light. The so-called secret letter was merely a transaction between me and Xiao Linyuan. I offered a brilliant strategy to resolve the Jiangnan floods. In return, he played along with my scheme, a classic case of setting a trap and waiting for the prey to enter. 20 years of marriage, I knew Xie Qingyang all too well. He loved Liu Ruyan enough to kill his wife and abandon his child, but what he loved most would always be himself, if love were truly unwavering. Why in past lives was Liu Ruyan forced to remain a hidden mistress for 18 years? If courage were truly boundless, why endure in silence until the Su family declined, only then daring to incite Xie Zishu to kill me, his lawful wife, the so-called white moonlight, compared to his future and his life? It's not worth mentioning. Xie Qingyang brought Xie Ping'an before me. With a hoarse voice, he said this was the orphaned child of an old friend, both parents deceased, entrusted to my care. Xie Ping'an's face was filled with bitterness. Having just endured the pain of losing his mother, he raised his head and, upon clearly seeing my face, couldn't help but call out, "Mother." I crouched down and gently stroked his head. "Oh, my dear child, from now on, consider this place your home, and me your mother." His hand gripped my fingers tightly, as if afraid I would vanish the moment he let go. One generation plants the trees, another enjoys the shade. Liu Ruyan was dead. This substitute of mine naturally rose to prominence. Xie Qingyang poured all his misplaced guilt onto me. Antiques, jewelry, silks, crates upon crates were carried into my courtyard. He would gladly spend his entire fortune to make it up to me. He visited my courtyard with increasing frequency. Sometimes he would gaze at my face lost in thought, but mostly he wanted to rebuild his father-son relationship with Xie Ping'an. However, the murder of one's mother is an unforgivable enmity that cannot coexist under the same sky. Every time Xie Qingyang appeared, Xie Ping'an would go berserk, lunging at him with punches, kicks, scratches, and bites. After all, my belly is big now, making it hard to move around. I always waited until Xie Qingyang was covered in wounds before pulling Xie Ping'an away. Then, I'd look at Xie Qingyang with helplessness written all over my face. "Husband, the child is still young. I'm afraid this emotional hurdle will be difficult to overcome." Xie Qingyang could only leave dejectedly. Gradually, he no longer dared to appear casually before Xie Ping'an. He repeatedly urged me, "Ruyi, Ping'an listens to you most. You must plead my case earnestly and make him understand my difficulties." I naturally agreed readily. I worry this child is too young and forgetful, so I always unintentionally remind him how tragically his mother died, and what a scoundrel his father was. Under my daily careful guidance, Xie Ping'an's heart grew increasingly filled with hatred. In the blink of an eye, the time for childbirth arrived. Xie Qingyang was now more anxious about my safety than anyone else. He hired 3 of the most experienced midwives to take turns attending me, stocked the storeroom with every life-saving herb imaginable, terrified that either I or the child in my womb might suffer the slightest mishap. After all, if anything were to happen to Jiang Rui's body again, his last hope would be shattered. This time, no one caused any trouble. The birthing process turned out to be surprisingly smooth. Unlike ordinary wrinkled newborns, Xie Zishu had clearly defined features. His round, bright eyes made him utterly adorable. Perhaps it was some lingering bloodline connection. The hand that wanted to strangle him ultimately couldn't bring itself to strike. "Take him away, quickly." I turned my face away irritably and snapped the order. Out of sight, out of mind. As for Su Wanqing, she took quite a liking to this child. Whenever she came by, Xie Zishu would babble happily at her, waving his little arms begging to be held. Su Wanqing adored him beyond measure. I held Su Wanqing in my arms, playing with her for so long that I couldn't bear to let go. Unable to resist, I spoke up as a reminder. "This is nothing but an ungrateful wolf cub." Before the words had fully left his mouth, as if understanding my words, Xie Zishu turned his head to look at me, his little mouth trembling before bursting into loud wails. Su Wanqing immediately hugged him tightly with heartache, gently rocking him. "What nonsense! Our little Zishu is so adorable. Godmother loves you." I felt an inexplicable anger burning inside me. This unfilial child truly clashes with me in every way. On the day of Xie Zishu's full moon celebration, the Xie residence was ablaze with lights, bustling with noise until late into the night. I sat beneath the corridor eaves in the courtyard, listening to the faint strains of silken bamboo music drifting from afar. Xie Qingyang had indeed kept his word. In front of the clan elders, he officially registered Xie Zi under Su Wanqing's name, making him the legitimate eldest son of the Xie family. It lasted until midnight. Only then was the courtyard gate forcefully pushed open. Xie Qingyang staggered in, reeking of alcohol. Seeing me, he grinned broadly, eager to boast of his achievements. It's done, Ruyi, from now on. Zishu is the rightful heir of the Xie family. Just be patient a little longer. Soon I'll bring you and Ping'an home with great fanfare. Before he could finish speaking, he froze in place. Xie Ping'an stood in the shadows of the courtyard, holding a bowl of sobering soup, and spoke respectfully. Father, you've had too much to drink. This is sobering soup I prepared for you. This single word, father, it caught Xie Qingyang completely off guard. He grasped my hands excitedly. Yanga, did you see? Ping'an, he finally acknowledges me. Today truly brings double happiness. Clearly drunk beyond reason. You even called me by the wrong name. The moment Yanga slipped out, Xie Ping'an's eyes turned terrifyingly dark, swirling with bone-deep hatred. Xie Qingyang kept rambling on and on. I didn't hear a word. Just stood there smiling gently. Xie Qingyang's body suddenly stiffened. Phut! A thick, jet-black stream of blood violently erupted from his mouth. I let out a startled ah, and leaped far away, terrified of staining my skirt hem. Xie Qingyang widened her eyes in disbelief. His body convulsed violently as blood gushed continuously from his mouth and nose. Ha 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 ha! Xie Ping'an laughed uproariously, his childish face twisted with hatred. You killed my mother, you deserve to die. Xie Qingyang's gaze at this moment was exactly the same as when I was drowned in the pond in my past life. Shock, agony, the despair of betrayal by one's closest kin. Xie Qingyang curled up in pain, his body convulsing. He opened his mouth futilely, only to vomit more clots of blood, driven to ruin by his own son. What kind of feeling is this? I watched Xie Qingyang's agonized expression with cold indifference. Does it hurt? In my past life, I too endured this heart-wrenching pain. Now in this lifetime, it's finally your turn. Xie Ping'an was, after all, killing someone for the first time. He was still just a half-grown boy. Once that fierce determination for revenge faded, all that remained was instinctive dread. He couldn't stop trembling all over. I sighed inwardly. By the time Xie Ping'an entered, I had long been dead. There was no direct, deep-seated hatred between us. Ping'an, I spoke, my voice eerily calm. Leave, get out of the capital, go as far as you can. And never come back. Xie Ping'an shook his head frantically. No, I'm the one who killed him. I can't drag you into this. You must go. My tone brooked no argument. Living is more important than anything else. I'll handle everything here. He looked at me, his eyes gradually reddening. The stalemate lasted a moment. In the end, he couldn't withstand my persistence. The next moment, he retreated 2 steps, lifted his robe, and properly kowtowed 3 times with audible thumps. When he raised his head again, his forehead was already swollen red, and his words rang out clearly, Mother's life-saving grace. Ping'an shall never forget it. I waved my hand. Someone immediately came in and took Xie Ping'an away. In this lifetime, he would never have another chance to return to the capital. Xie Qingyang collapsed to the ground. He stared at me with intense hatred burning in his eyes. It's you. Blood choked his throat. Every word he uttered came with immense difficulty. I turned around and raised my voice toward the door. Aren't you coming in? You'll regret missing this good show. Su Wanqing entered at the sound of my voice. Xie Qingyang's eyes nearly burst from their sockets when he saw the 2 of us standing shoulder to shoulder. The speed at which he vomited blood suddenly accelerated, one mouthful after another, as if he wanted to vomit out all his internal organs. When did you? He exerted all his strength, wanting to demand when we had conspired together. I chuckled lightly, interrupting him. Don't worry, you won't die just yet. I swapped Ping'an's medicine long ago. A flicker of hope crossed his face. Watching his cowardly, death-fearing demeanor, the smile at the corners of my lips deepened. Except, this medicine will leave you lying in bed forever like a living corpse, conscious yet unable to speak, aware yet unable to move. Death, that would be letting him off too easy. I'll make him beg for death yet find life unbearable. Let his remaining years be spent in endless torment, slowly repaying every debt he owes. These words utterly shattered Xie Qingyang's last psychological defenses. Summoning his final reserves of strength, he struggled forward on his hands, blooded fingers clutching desperately at Su Wanqing's skirt hem. Su Wanqing mercilessly kicked him in the left face. He then crawled toward me, his eyes filled with humble pleading. Are you? Ah. I kicked him again on the right side of his face. Why? He looked up at me, his eyes filled with confusion. I treated you so well, I burst out laughing. Xie Qingyang, if Liu Ruyan hadn't died, it would have been me instead. I just never imagined you could be so ruthless toward her, raising your blade and striking her down without hesitation. TSK. She loved you so much she even sold herself to raise your son. How heartless you truly are. I leaned close to his ear and whispered softly in Liu Ruyan's voice. Yang. Didn't you say you loved me most? I'm so lonely down here. Won't you come keep me company? Xie Qingyan's eyes widened as he coughed up another mouthful of blood. His hands clawed feebly at the empty air while choked. Indistinct sobs escaped his throat. TSK. I straightened up. Gone mad already? How pathetic. Yes, Su Wanqing sighed softly beside me, yet her tone carried not a trace of sympathy. My husband is truly pitiful. The day I left the capital, the sky was clear and bright. I left Xie's issue to Su Wanqing. It's called staying, but truth be told, it was this unfilial son's own choice. Before departure, I went to see him one last time. He was being cradled in Su Wanqing's arms. The moment he saw me, his lips puckered as if about to cry. I said I was leaving. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he waved his little hands at me with babbles, as if urging me to hurry up and go. My heart sank with a pang. Truly an ungrateful wretch, in my past life. I raised him with all my heart and soul, yet he killed me for the sake of a birth mother he'd never met. This lifetime, I became his birth mother, and still he treats me with cold indifference. I stepped forward and gave his little face a firm pinch, whispering words only the two of us could hear. Ungrateful brat, listen well. In this lifetime, treat her right, make her happy. Grant her every wish, and let her live a long life. If you dare show even a hint of disobedience, I'll make sure you die horribly. Xiezishu wrinkled his tiny nose from my pinch but continued babbling cheerfully, utterly carefree as ever. I stood up. Su Wanqing also pursed her lips, her face on the verge of tears. I flashed her a carefree smile and swung onto the horse with practiced ease, with a flick of the reins. I never looked back. The wind rushed past my ears. I shouted loudly, farewell. The rivers and lakes are vast, we'll meet again someday. Past life. My entire life was confined within four walls, as wife and mother, yet met no peaceful end. This lifetime, I've shaken off all shackles, heading southward all the way, stepping through the misty willows and painted bridges of Yangzhou in March, savoring the lotus fragrance and perch delicacies of Hangzhou in June, listening to the midnight bell chimes from Hanshan Temple in Suzhou. I've witnessed the long river sunset in the vast deserts of the northwest. I wrote all these landscapes and anecdotes into letters, sending them to Su Wanqing in the capital. In Su Wanqing's reply, I learned that she's now living quite well. She told me that Xie Qingyang was dead. On a cold winter night, he knocked over a candle stand himself and was burned alive into a charred corpse. Xie Ping'an was very sensible, always putting her first, and was renowned in the capital as a filial son. Studying diligently paved his way to official success. He passed the imperial examination at 16, married at 18, and by 21, she was already holding her granddaughter in her arms. At the end of the letter, her tone shifted abruptly. From your words, I've come to realize how vast the world truly is. These four walls of the inner chambers are unbearably dull. I, too, wish to see Jiangnan. Chuckling, I picked up my brush to reply, good, then we'll meet when spring blossoms bloom, rain or shine. The end. And so the first story ends. What do you all think? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed it, please give this video a like. Now, here's the second story. The year Xie Changfeng sent me to the bed of the neighboring crown prince. Trembling, I tried to embrace him. Changfeng, I'm scared, yet he merely said lightly, you were never clever to begin with, and you're not half as pretty as Qingyao. No man would ever touch you. Just wait, I'll come fetch you someday. He kept his word. He really did come for me. Yet she was punished by kneeling in the Xie family's hall for acting without permission, forced to marry me. Everyone expected him to refuse, but unexpectedly, I was the first to clutch my stomach and shake my head, saying, RWN won't marry him. He laughed angrily, disdainful. I haven't even started ing you yet, and you raying me first. The words died abruptly as his gaze fell upon my slightly rounded belly. He froze, eyes turning red with disbelief, his expression twisting viciously. He touched you. When Xie Changfeng asked this question, his expression was fierce. I instinctively shrunk my neck, but still spoke blankly. His Highness the Crown Prince is Owen's husband. Why can't he touch Owen? Moreover, wasn't it Xie Changfeng who sent me to His Highness's bed in the first place? A year ago, the great Jin and Li Kingdom decided to form a marriage alliance. Naturally, they couldn't present an idiot princess like me. That left only one candidate, my elder sister, Su Qingyao. But Xie Changfeng refused. The eldest princess is gifted with extraordinary intelligence and pure as ice. How could she be sent to that bitter, frozen land to suffer? So he turned his gaze toward me, hiding behind him. He must despise me. My birth mother was a woman from the Xie family, who entered the palace alone for her clan's sake, to become the Xie family's offering to demonstrate loyalty to the emperor. Yet she never won the emperor's love, and the child she bore was a simpleton, knowing they owed too much. The Xie family instructed Xie Changfeng from childhood to protect me well. Coincidentally, I was different from my imperial sister. Su Qingwan was born dull-witted and utterly foolish. Her skin was rough and thick besides. Once when we were children, my imperial sister playfully dragged Xie Changfeng along, and to keep me from following, he left me behind in the hunting grounds. Terrified, I begged him not to go, but he only snapped impatiently. Just stay put under this tree and wait for me, won't you? Besides, what danger could there possibly be in the royal hunting grounds? Su Qingwan, you're being such a nuisance. He was lying. The hunting grounds were pitch black, teeming with venomous snakes and wild boars. At night, you could even hear the howls of jackals. Why was it nighttime? Because Xie Changfeng got carried away playing and forgot about me. When the others finally found me, I was still under that tree, only now with viper fang marks and wounds from evading wild beasts. He was so angry he nearly cried. The others said he'd searched for me all night. You're so stupid. You really just stood there frozen. I didn't want him to cry. So I wiped the corners of his eyes with a silly grin. Changfeng, don't cry. Owen will be good. I even shook my bitten left hand to comfort him, saying, Owen doesn't hurt. She was lying, it actually hurt like hell. But before her mother passed away, she had told her, Owen, no matter what, don't make your cousin angry. If possible, make him happy, make him like you. Mother must have loved me dearly. On nights when she was ill, she would often gaze at me with reddened eyes for the longest time while I slept soundly. So I behaved. I tried my best not to anger Xie Changfeng, striving instead to amuse him. He froze for a moment, then burst into laughter upon seeing my grimacing face the next second. Su Qingwan, you're utterly hopeless. I nearly forgot the pain, staring at him foolishly as I asked, then is Changfeng happy? Does Changfeng like Owen? I suddenly leaned in close, and Xie Changfeng opened his mouth slightly, his face inexplicably flushing red, yet he angrily stepped back, saying, who likes you? Someone as foolish as you. If one were to like anyone, it should be someone as clever as Qingyao. This time, he wasn't lying. So if my elder sister can't go for the political marriage, then I can go instead. Because my elder sister would rush into his arms, crying her heart out. What should I do? Changfeng, I absolutely refuse to go. I won't marry some damned crown prince, you know perfectly well. You know perfectly well. Her tear-filled eyes gazed at Xie Changfeng, words caught in her throat. The sentence remained unfinished, but it might as well have been complete. I saw Xie Changfeng stiffen when embraced. Moments later, he gently returned Empress Sister's hug, cherished beyond measure, as if afraid of breaking a precious treasure. But if Her Highness refuses to go, then who else could possibly undertake this task? The great Jin dynasty has only 2 princesses. Xie Changfeng fell silent. Afraid of being caught eavesdropping, I ran back to my own palace. By the time Xie Changfeng came looking for me after the princess left, it was already afternoon. I was playing with my treasured trinkets and had nearly forgotten their conversation. I looked up and saw Xie Changfeng standing not far away, silently watching me without saying a word. I don't know how long he'd been watching. Instinctively, I hunched my shoulders slightly, feeling a bit scared. Had he caught me eavesdropping? Changfeng will be angry. I was already foolish, but now I had to pretend to be even more foolish, shaking the rattle drum at Xie Changfeng with a laugh. Changfeng, that rattle drum was given to me by him. My birthday falls on the same day as the imperial elder sisters, but a foolish and unfavored princess seems unworthy of sharing a grand birthday banquet with the daughter of a favored consort, especially when she also has a younger brother who might become the future crown prince. In the past, Mother Consort would hold me in her arms, dress me in new clothes she sewed herself, and watch the fireworks lighting up the sky for my elder sister's celebration. She seemed so sad, and I didn't want her to be, so I pretended to be happy, pointing excitedly at the fireworks for Mother to see. But why did Mother's tears only flow more freely then? Later, Mother was gone. No one makes me new clothes by hand for my birthday anymore. I've become utterly alone. Sitting on the long palace steps hugging my knees, watching the fiery trees and silver flowers bloom across the sky. I'm such a fool. I shouldn't feel sad, yet my heart remains heavy. Thinking of Mother Consort makes my eyes sting. Xie Changfeng appeared at precisely this moment. The night breeze is chilly. How could the servants be so careless? What if you fall ill? I stood bewildered, unable to comprehend why this cousin who usually treated me with disdain had suddenly appeared. He couldn't bear my gaze. Turning his face away, he tossed something toward me. You're just as stupid if they don't care about you. Don't you know to go back inside by yourself? It was an exquisitely crafted rattle drum, adorned with delicate cloud patterns. I've always loved these kinds of children's toys. Xie Changfeng never thought much of them. But he made one for me. I hugged the rattle drum with delight and laughed. The drum's rhythmic beats accompanied the glow of fireworks, illuminating both his face and mine. I call out, Changfeng, I like Changfeng. Mother taught me that whoever makes me happy, then I shall like them. That's why I love Changfeng. I love Xie Changfeng. He reacted intensely, his neck flushed crimson. Furious. You fool, who taught you to speak such nonsense? The sounds of playful scuffling and laughter intertwined. It was my favorite birthday night after Mother Consort left. Only later did I come to realize, on my elder sister's birthday, he gifted her a sandalwood screen he had carved himself over 6 months. My little rattle drum was merely made from leftover scraps after the screen was completed. It was during the banquet when the Crown Prince of Li Kingdom came to escort the bride-to-be. He pushed me into that tightly shut chamber. I shrank back timidly, wanting to embrace him. Changfeng, I'm scared. Yet his reply was airy and dismissive. You were always dull-witted, not half as pretty as Qingyao. No man would ever touch you. Just wait, I'll come fetch you someday. He considered this a brilliant strategy. The Crown Prince of Li Kingdom wouldn't even glance at me sober, let alone drunk. He'd never touch me. Yet the undeniable fact remained, we were alone together in that chamber. Left with no choice, he acknowledged me as the peace marriage princess. And I am the princess sent for political marriage between the Great Jin and the Kingdom of Li. With this status, even if I go to Li, I won't suffer mistreatment. After all, I'm just a pawn in the alliance between two nations, and a fool at that. No matter how aggrieved the Crown Prince of Li might feel, he wouldn't stoop to quarreling with a fool and risk ruining the grand affairs of both kingdoms. As for why he could come pick me up in a few days, I hadn't figured it out yet. When I was already pushed inside, the side room was quiet, filled with a faint aroma of wine. There was a person lying on the bed. I swallowed hard. I quietly approached, reaching out toward the person sleeping with tightly closed eyes. In the next instant, the motionless figure suddenly grabbed at my neck with fierce intensity in their gaze. Who sent you to assassinate me? My neck was grabbed, yet his cool fingertips brushed against his burning forehead. He froze. I blinked. You're sick. He didn't let go, yet I pressed the back of my hand more insistently against his forehead. Alarmed, you're sick. Imperial concubine Mother felt just as burning hot when she fell ill. Like fire. Later, she too seemed to burn out like flames, placed by the emperor into a wooden coffin and buried in the earth. Countless times I've thought, if only I could extinguish the fire, then Mother Consort wouldn't have left me. Now, here was another such person standing before me. And I was so frantic I could cry. Tears streamed down my cheeks onto the hand gripping my neck. He reacted as if scalded, abruptly released his hold. He was a strikingly handsome man, yet his beauty differed from Xie Changfeng's. He resembled a piece of jade, though his face bore a faint flush from the heat. Freed from restraint, I huffed and puffed my way to the wash basin nearby, wet the handkerchief, fold it into a neat square, and place it on his forehead, just like back then. When I kept vigil by my mother's side in the same way, the fever's gone, sleep it off, and you'll be fine. I patted his arm, mimicking how I used to comfort my mother. Mother used to laugh and say I was playing house. Now, the man gazed at me quietly for a moment, as if truly exhausted, and lay down on the bed. Slowly, he closed his eyes. I didn't dare to leave, because I feared that if I walked away, he too would be burned to ashes like my mother. But after changing the cloth dozens of times, I still couldn't help yawning, even though he couldn't hear me. Still, I promised him, I'll just sleep for a little while, I'll keep watching over you soon. But in truth, I curled up beside his hand and slept soundly until dawn. It wasn't until I heard the clamor of voices, the sound of the door being kicked open, and something being hastily thrown over me that I rubbed my eyes and opened them. What I saw, however, was my father and his favorite concubine, accompanied by my royal siblings and a crowd of people. This fool truly knows no shame. The fourth prince, or rather, my elder sister's younger brother, who could also be considered my brother, Su Qingrong, let out a contemptuous laugh. In the past, when he took a dislike to me and joined forces with the imperial sister to order the palace servants to bully me, he would also smile contemptuously like this. The others exchanged meaningful glances upon hearing this. They also looked at the person behind me. Xie Changfeng stood at the very front. His expression showed no joy, but rather swept over my entire body with intense scrutiny. Apart from the slightly disheveled collar and someone having draped an outer garment over me, I was otherwise unharmed. He seemed to let out a sigh of relief. Behind me, the man's cool voice rang out. What reason does the great Jin Emperor have for barging into my quarters with his entourage? None of the expected awkwardness, confusion, or anger from the man materialized. Instead, this single question left Father Emperor and his party speechless. I couldn't comprehend what this scene signified. Just instinctively turned my head, looking over blankly, yet all I could see was the man's pale, handsome profile after the faint blush had faded, as was to be expected. I became the new peace marriage princess. The emperor and noble consort Xian, the mother of my imperial sister, were both very pleased. It was worth exchanging a foolish princess instead of their own beloved daughter for a marriage alliance between two nations. I was also very happy because what His Majesty told me was, since I had been very well behaved these days, they would let me go out to play for some time. They'll come to pick me up later, just as Xie Changfeng said. But why didn't Xie Changfeng come to see me off? I could only assume I'd somehow managed to upset him again. He's always angry with me anyway, whether I argue with my royal sister, glance at other men a few times too many, or wear clothes that are too thick or too thin, there's always a reason for his anger. When he gets angry, he refuses to see me or speak to me. Every time, I have to pester him to coax me for ages, but this time, I won't ask for coaxing first. They're all urging me to leave now, wait for me to come back. When I get back, I'll coax him then. I boarded the bridal palanquin, dressed in the most exquisite garments I had ever worn. Inside, someone was already seated. The man wore red robes like me, his features calm as he raised his eyes to watch me approach him. They said, that was my husband. I thought, Xie Changfeng, those who once insisted on our marriage were mistaken. I think I won't marry you after all. The bridal sedan wasn't exactly small, yet not particularly spacious either. After all, we were strangers, and he kept staring at me without saying a word. I felt a bit embarrassed, but still pointed to the spot beside him and cautiously asked, could you move over a little? I lifted my skirt. Today's skirt is so voluminous I can't fit otherwise. He's really easy to talk to. He actually moved aside. If it were Xie Changfeng, he'd probably call me an idiot first before giving way. I felt somewhat pleased. Since you're being so agreeable, I won't have to worry about being scolded for going out to play these days. Laughing smugly, I got carried away and got smacked in the face by the beaded curtain overhead. Crying out in pain, the man chuckled softly and sighed. His slender fingers blocked the beaded curtain for me, effortlessly removing the headdress. He asked, do you know who I am? I tilted my head to look at him, cocking it slightly with a smile. My husband. That's how they all taught me. They said, "Awn, look carefully. This is your husband." The man frowned slightly, whether at me or someone else. Then do you know who your husband is? What do you mean, who my husband is? Isn't a husband just a husband? Besides, that's not why I came here. I grabbed the hem of his clothes and asked, "Where are we going to play?" His brows carried a hint of helplessness. He wasn't angry, nor did he scold me for being foolish. Instead, he said to me, "Huaijing, me, what?" He said, "Your husband, Owen. Your husband's name is Xiao Huaijing." I arrived in the kingdom of Li. At last, I understood why Xie Changfeng had said he would come to fetch me after some time had passed, because Xiao Huaijing was always an unwelcome crown prince. His empress mother had long passed away, and this crown prince position seemed more like a shield temporarily preserved to take arrows for the true heir. Naturally, this crown prince position wouldn't be held for long either. If that weren't the case, discussing marriage alliances wouldn't have reached the point where the future son of heaven had to test the waters. It seems both he and I are unwelcome people. This was after Xiao Huaijing's wet nurse told me, the conclusion I've drawn, but originally, when I first arrived, it wasn't Nurse Nanny who took care of me. At that time, he brought me to meet the true future crown prince, the second prince, Xiao Huayu. That man looked at me, then turned his gaze to Xiao Huaijing, and burst into mocking laughter. "Xiao Huaijing, I never thought you'd be so useless. His Majesty graciously allowed you to marry a princess, and what do? You marry a fool of a princess. But then again, you're just a stray dog, even a simpleton princess might not want you." His gaze fixed on me as he asked with malicious glee, "Don't you think so too, sis?" Xiao Huaijing's expression remained unchanged, though his grip on my hand tightened slightly. I didn't understand what the other person meant, but, "Are you saying Huaijing is a dog? That's adorable." I nodded earnestly. The hand holding mine paused. The person who had been sneering and laughing moments ago froze, clearly not expecting such a response from me. Yet when I spoke, I was utterly serious. Without the slightest hint of sarcasm, he was left speechless, his face flushing red. With an angry flick of his sleeve, he stormed off. Fools will always be fools, such a disgraceful thing. I couldn't understand why he was angry, as unfathomable as Xie Changfeng. Yet I'd only just arrived here and already made others unhappy. I couldn't help feeling somewhat uneasy. I asked Xiao Huaijing, "Did I say something wrong?" Xiao Huaijing turned his head and looked at my bewildered face, curving his lips. He pinched my cheek. "No, Edavian is absolutely right. So her name is Edavian. We've grown quite familiar these past few days. He's truly a good-natured person. He never lost his temper with me throughout the entire journey. He was the first person I'd met, besides my birth mother, who was so tolerant and even praised me, all because it seemed the illness from that night still lingered in him. The nights were always sweltering. I still changed his cooling towel and even wove him a protective knot. This was something my mother taught me. She said, "Wear this protective knot, it can protect me safely." So I tied it around Xiao Huaijing's waist, looking at him expectantly, though in truth, I was just afraid he'd find it distasteful, because when I made it for Xie Changfeng, he would unhappily pull it off and toss it aside. It's hideous. Not even a single jade bead. Who knows how many people would laugh if I wore it out. But Xiao Huaijing merely stroked that protective knot, lost in thought, and chuckled softly. "That's really well written. It's rare for me to receive praise." Scratching my head awkwardly, I stammered out some polite words. "Just so, really, father didn't lie to me. They truly sent me out to have fun." Along the way, Xiao Huaijing showed me mountains, rivers, and streams. I learned to call him by his name. The name Xie Changfeng that she used to call out in anger or joy had now become Xiao Huaijing, but this time, it carried neither impatience nor annoyance. But without exception, they all looked back. Leaving the country was good. Xiao Huaijing was good. It's just that the palace made by my side didn't seem to like me very much. After the others had left, her smiling face turned scrutinizing, then she curled her lips disdainfully. I thought it was something special, but turns out she's just a fool, just lucky enough to be born a princess. Otherwise, how could I become the crown princess? Behind closed doors, she always called me a fool. She forbade me from speaking ill of her to Xiao Huaijing. She even smirked at me with ill intent. "Fool. Do you know why His Highness the Crown Prince married you? It's only because of your status. In truth, he detests you. If he could, he might kill you right now. After all, what man in this world could endure the shame of marrying a fool?" I didn't believe a word she said, but one day, she told me, "See that grove by the hunting grounds? The Crown Prince has gone missing. They say there are black bears and wild wolves placed inside in advance. Tell me, how long do you think you'll last without His Highness the Crown Prince's protection? I didn't believe her when she said Xiao Huijing didn't like me. Yet strangely enough, his disappearance she mentioned was indeed true. The Emperor of Kelly merely sent people to search for appearance's sake. Showing not a trace of grief for his soon-to-be-lost son, the second prince, Xiao Huaiyu, was radiant with joy. The scene was one of unbridled merriment. None of them liked Xiao Huijing. They all wanted Xiao Huijing dead. I watched them clinking glasses in merry revelry. Suddenly I remembered that night when I was abandoned in the hunting grounds. Was Father Emperor Xie Changfeng and the others like this too? But the hunting grounds at night were truly freezing. The vipers in the wild grass would indeed bite. The wild boars lurking in the bushes could truly go mad. If no one went looking for Xiao Huijing, how terrified he must be. I instinctively stepped back. 1 step, 2 steps. Finally, without looking back, he turned and ran towards the dense forest merging with the night. Xiao Huijing, Xiao Huijing, Xiao Huijing, I shouted into the darkness. After Mother Consort left, that hollow, indescribable sorrow surged through me again. Tears fell unconsciously into the wind. I desperately tried to find him, this man who had known me for barely half a year, yet would listen to me speak with a smile and praise how well I wove decorative knots. They say he is my husband, not just a playmate who accompanies me halfway. We are husband and wife, bound together for life. Even in death, we will lie buried side by side. I'm overjoyed, because I've finally found someone who won't dislike me, look down on me, and will stay with me forever. I went to ask Xiao Huijing if he knew. If he didn't know, wouldn't he regret it later upon realizing he'd been deceived? Even if he truly regrets it, I wouldn't blame him, because a one is a fool who would want to spend their whole life with a fool. But he said, I know, hesitantly. I asked him if he wouldn't regret it. He held my hand. To spend a lifetime with a one, shouldn't that be a blessing? I couldn't describe how I felt at that moment, perhaps overwhelmed with joy. My mother once said, whoever brings me joy, that is love. I love Xiao Huijing. It's different from Xie Changfeng's affection. Far, far more than Xie Changfeng's. Xiao Huijing, sobbing, I crashed into a warm embrace. A familiar voice groaned weakly, carrying a hint of amusement and resignation. Are you trying to murder your own husband? He wiped my tear-streaked face, frowning. How did you get here? He believed someone would take good care of me, but as I looked at him, I had long forgotten how to cry. I could only hold on tight, choking back sobs. I love Xiao Huijing. Yes, I love Xiao Huijing. I liked him. He was always my husband. The person holding me stiffened momentarily before leaning back to scrutinize me intently. Owen, what did you just say? My face streaked with tears like a messy kitten. I repeated, I love Xiao Huijing. I don't want you to abandon me like Mother Consort did, leaving me unable to find you ever again. His hands trembled with restrained intensity. Finally, he gently pressed a kiss upon my lips. He held me tightly in his arms, as if afraid I would vanish in an instant. Xiao Huijing returned alive. Many were displeased. The Emperor of Li Kingdom left the banquet early. Xiao Huaiyu gnashed his teeth in anger, kicked over the wine table, and stormed off. Behind closed doors, the palace maid who disliked me knelt before him, kneeling repeatedly to beg for mercy, claiming it was all the second prince's doing. Xiao Huijing's expression remained indifferent, yet carried a chill that felt unfamiliar to me. He covered my ears, uttered a few words. The palace maid turned ashen-faced. He thought I couldn't hear, but I heard it. What he said was, drag him down, kill him. After this incident, Xiao Huijing seemed reluctant to let any other palace maids accompany me, until the third day. A carriage stopped in front of the Eastern Palace. Out stepped an elderly matron with silver-white hair. Xiao Huijing pulled me along and, under my curious gaze, called her nanny. I followed suit and foolishly called her nanny too. The old nanny laughed heartily at this. She was a kind-hearted old woman, but the other palace maids in the Eastern Palace dared not show the slightest negligence or disrespect. With the wet nurse's arrival, Xiao Huijing began leaving early and returning late. He seemed extremely busy, only in the dead of night. I only then became aware of the familiar person holding me in their arms, embracing me as we drifted into sleep. In my drowsy state, I instinctively imitated him and patted his back too. Nanny seemed afraid I might be upset that Xiao Huijing was neglecting me. That's when she finally explained his situation to me clearly. As an unwelcome crown prince, everyone was waiting for his downfall. He had no choice but to climb higher. During his busiest period, I didn't see him for an entire month. The wet nurse secretly moved me out of the Eastern Palace with her. We arrived at an unfamiliar courtyard. She said that when Xiao Huijing returned, he would come fetch me, but I didn't have time to wait for his return. Instead, I waited until Xie Changfeng burst through the door. He said, "Orn, the kingdom of Li has fallen into chaos. Come with me, quickly." I didn't have time to refuse. He didn't even give me a chance to refuse, seeing my hesitation and impatience. "Isn't it just asking you to stay here a bit longer? How long are you going to stay angry? What's with this attitude?" He led me onto the carriage. I didn't dare to struggle, because half a month ago, I vomited the pastries made by Nurse Nanny. Then I became dizzy and sickly, after taking my pulse. The doctor told Nurse Nanny, who then exclaimed happily, "I'm carrying Xiao Huijing or Xiaowen in my belly, so I must be careful if I bump into anything. They could be lost." And so, just like that, I returned to Diajin. The crown prince's fate remains unknown after leaving the country, a useless crown princess. The foolish princess returned from a political marriage. The emperor was pleased to have me taken to the Xie family, letting the Xie family shoulder this burden for him. When the Xie family parents saw me, they hugged me with heartache. That unfilial son actually hid such matters from us, making you take the fall. Don't be afraid, Ergun. When I found out about this, I nearly broke his legs. We'll keep constant watch over him, and at the first opportunity, we'll bring you back home. Otherwise, how could we ever face your mother? They wept bitterly. Xie Changfeng laughed bitterly. Just who is your real child? He actually didn't refute or get particularly angry. You must understand, what he hated most in the past was being scolded by Xie's parents because of me. In his view, if it weren't for me, this burden, he would have long been paired with the imperial princess. Yet, he couldn't shake me off no matter what. "Never mind, it's good that you're back. It's good that you're back." Father Xie regained his composure, holding my hand and sighing. "Awn, after all, it's our Xie family that wronged you and your mother. Now that you've returned, let Changfeng marry you." How could that be? I was startled. I turned to look at Xie Changfeng, not to mention I already have a husband to spend my life with, and if my elder sister found out I stole what was hers, she'd surely make me kneel in punishment again. Just look at how much Xie Changfeng adores my elder sister. Had he been forced to marry me, he surely would have cursed me and smashed things. Yet he hadn't. Yet he didn't, rarely putting up no resistance. He merely shot me a glare instead. "You should be secretly delighted." He stared at me with his chin raised, as if waiting for me to be overjoyed. Even others thought Xie Changfeng would absolutely refuse. But no one expected this. I was the first to clutch my stomach and shake my head as I spoke. "Awn won't marry him." Xie Changfeng's faintly raised smile froze abruptly. The embrace and surprise he had been waiting for never came. Instead, he heard the words, "I won't marry him." It took him a long moment to snap out of his daze. He let out a bitter laugh, his voice dripping with disdain. "What's there to hesitate about? You're the one complaining about me when I haven't even started ing you yet." His words cut off abruptly as he noticed me shielding my abdomen. He froze momentarily, his eyes turning red with disbelief. Then, with an expression, he raised his head and spoke in a trembling voice. "Did he touch you?" His words came out. Everyone else instinctively looked at my belly. The reaction was too strong. And I took a couple of steps back in fear, confused as to why he asked that. "Why can't your highness touch a Wuan when you're her husband? Moreover, Lord Xie, Lady Xie, I must take my leave now." I finally seized the chance to speak. "Our Wan's husband is still waiting for her to come home. He said he would come pick Awn up. If he arrives and finds Awn isn't here, he'll worry." I lifted my leg to step toward the door, but as I passed by Xie Changfeng, he grabbed my arm tightly. He stared at me unblinkingly, scrutinizing every expression on my face. Then trembling, he asked again, "Did he touch you?" When did Xie Changfeng become dumber than me? I've already answered him. Yet he keeps asking. Even I wouldn't do that. I could only clutch my stomach and reply. Huijing is Awn's husband. When he touches Awn is willing. Awn likes it too. Rather than a simple yes or no, This confession of willingness and affection struck like a sudden blow to the head. It sent Xie Changfeng staggering, nearly knocking him off his feet, nearly fell to the ground. Xie's parents exclaimed in shock, "Changfeng, how could this be?" He wouldn't listen to what others were saying, gripping my wrist tightly while muttering to himself, "How could this possibly happen? You're so..." He looked up at me, swallowing the word he was about to say, yet I spoke it for him. "I'm so stupid. How could Huijing possibly want me, marrying a foolish princess like me? Must be the greatest shame of his life. He must loathe me utterly, despise me and hate me to the core. After all, if I hadn't suddenly appeared, he would have married my imperial sister instead, pure as ice and snow, radiantly intelligent. Compared to her, I'm not even worthy of a single strand of my royal sister's hair. Everyone thinks so, even Xie Changfeng. Yet he refuses to admit it." I see panic flash through his eyes when I voice it aloud. "Owen, that's not what I meant." I merely shook off his hand and shook my head. "That's exactly what you meant. You all say I'm not as good as the imperial elder sister, and indeed I'm not, but Huijing told me, the imperial sister is the imperial sister, and a WN is a WN. If the imperial sister were truly that wonderful, then she should marry a man equally as wonderful, but he loves a WAN, and a WN loves him too, so of course he must marry a WN." As I spoke these words, it felt as if I had returned to those days when I loved sharing every blade of grass and every tree with Xie Changfeng. The wildflowers in the temple have bloomed, I must tell him. The little fish in the lake died, I must tell him too. Yet every time I say such things, he finds me bothersome. What's the point of mentioning such trivial matters? But what can I do? No one keeps Owen company, so whenever I finally meet him, I can't help but chatter endlessly. This time, I raised a smile and cheerfully called out to him, "By the way, Changfeng, Erwin and he are married now. Do you know what it means to be married?" His face turned as pale as paper, staring at me blankly as I shared the news with him. "A couple, you see, are like winter geese who stay together for life, never ever parting." He trembled. "Stop saying that." But I didn't hear him. I just smiled and said, "Even if a Wuan and Huijing grow old and pass away, we'll still be buried together to sleep side by side. Enough. So you see, Changfeng, I can't marry you. You'll surely meet another girl who can spend her whole life with you. It's Her Royal Highness." But before I could finish speaking, Xie Changfeng sharply interrupted. "Enough." The sound was so loud it startled everyone. I stood there bewildered, but Mr. and Mrs. Xie, being experienced, immediately understood the situation. Fearing he might lose composure, they quickly issued a warning. "Changfeng, what are you doing? Owen is still here." "What?" Xie Changfeng's eyes reddened with anger as he shouted, "She's about to run off with someone else. She said it herself. She said she liked me. She said she wanted to be with me. How dare she go back on her word?" He grabbed me fiercely. "Su Qingwan, you can't go back on your word. How dare you take it back?" But I've already come to get you. This is getting more and more outrageous." Madame Xie couldn't bear to see him persist in his delusions and couldn't help retorting, "Who exactly are you blaming with these words? Are you blaming your father and me for ruining your marriage prospects? Yet how many times have we urged you to marry Owen? Did you ever agree? Or are you blaming Owen for not remaining chaste and bearing another man's child? But Xie Changfeng, wasn't it you who personally arranged that deception?" Her eyes brimmed with disappointment. Disappointment that the son she had raised with such care could turn out like this. Xie Changfeng's imposing demeanor deflated by half, muttering as if trying to make everyone believe his words weren't lies. "But I never thought he'd lay hands on her. Truly, Li Kingdom is worlds apart from here. How could delicate Awn resist even if she truly didn't want to? How could she possibly fight back then? It was you who insisted on refusing the marriage alliance with the Grand Princess and secretly had AW take her place instead, creating this colossal disaster. Now that Owen has found a good man and is with child, what are you regretting?" Father Xie said coldly, "Very well, what's done is done. The marriage is off. In the end, it was our Xie family who owed Owen. It's good that she returned safely. The Crown Prince of Li Kingdom is likely doomed, so from now on, our family will take good care of her and her child. This can be considered repaying kindness. This is the first reason. Secondly, they are after all Xie Changfeng's parents. Had I not been pregnant, had I not consummated my marriage with Xiao Huijing, They could still make Xie Changfeng marry me, yet the opposite happened. People are ultimately biased, no matter how much they felt they owed me and my mother. He would instinctively consider his son's interests. After all, he couldn't let his son marry a woman who had already been another man's wife and was carrying another man's child, and so I remained at the Xie residence. It wasn't that the Xie parents wouldn't let me leave, it was Xie Changfeng who suddenly went mad. He insisted on keeping me trapped here. No matter how much I protested, it was useless. I imitated my elder sister's angry tantrums, smashing things and hitting him in a frenzy. Yet he simply let me have my way, neither dodging nor resisting, nor would he let me leave. In the end, I truly grew angry, yelling at him, "Xie Changfeng, I won't bother you anymore. You don't have to listen to Lord Xie and Lady Xie's words to protect me either. You should be happy, didn't you hate me the most before? Besides, don't you adore the crown princess? Now that you can be with her, why must you still come to entangle me? He should go find his royal sister. They were deeply in love." With me no longer being the stumbling block, the Xie parents wouldn't oppose it either. I wanted to see a look of joyful realization appear on Xie Changfeng's face, but he just looked at me sorrowfully. These days, he's grown much thinner, and much more haggard, because of his despicable behavior. Old Master Xie was so furious he even resorted to family discipline, yet despite being beaten black and blue, he stubbornly refused to relent and let me go. Madame Xie came weeping to me. She said Xie Changfeng absolutely refused to take his medicine, and if I didn't go persuade him or see him once, he would truly suffer lasting harm to his health. She has always been very kind to me. Often, when I see her, I'm reminded of my mother, so when she sheds tears for me, I can't help but soften my heart. Then I refused her. It was Lady Xie who softened my heart. What does Xie Changfeng have to do with it? He became so wicked, locking me up, refusing to let me leave, and even wanting me to abandon Huijing to marry him. I haven't even cried yet. What's he crying about? As for Auntie Xie, didn't I already wipe her tears? In the end, I was half asleep in the middle of the night. Faintly, I seemed to catch a whiff of blood. Someone was sitting by my bed, watching me for a long time. The hand that ultimately wanted to touch my face lingered in hesitation, never descending, only managing a strained accusation. In the past, if I so much as scraped my skin, you'd act as though the sky had fallen, watching over me every moment. Yes, that's exactly what I did. Then I was mocked by Xie Changfeng, my royal sister, and Su Qingrong for making a fuss over nothing. Petty, now that I'm so badly injured, why haven't you come? I know you're still angry about me making you take Qingyao's place in the marriage alliance, aren't you? But I never expected, I truly never thought he would lay a hand on you, on the day you left. I couldn't come to see you off because my parents found out about my disgraceful actions and made me kneel in punishment. They called me a scoundrel, a beast, and I regretted it deeply. But by then it was already too late. I dragged my injured self to find you, but you were already gone. After that, I followed news from Li Kingdom every single day. I knew Xiao Huijing wouldn't last long as crown prince. I was just waiting for chaos to erupt so I could come bring you home. Everyone advised me to let it go. What's done is done. But I just wanted to bring you back. I made a promise to you, and I keep my word. But when he really brought me back, I was already pregnant, and there was no trace of him left in my eyes. It seemed like he was crying. A teardrop fell on the back of my hand, whispering softly, "I regret it, Orn, I regret it." Memories came flooding back, and now, we simply stood facing each other in silence. I didn't retreat as I usually would, but instead stood my ground, staring straight at him. It was he who faltered in the end, hurriedly avoiding my gaze. Finally, he opened his mouth. I've finally stepped out of the Xie residence, yet I'm not going home. Instead, she was taken by Xie Changfeng to the princess mansion of her elder sister. A year passed. Even though the emperor had so many princes, Su Qingrong continued to rise in power, and the position of crown prince was almost certainly his. And consort Xian remained favored without interruption. As the daughter of the virtuous consort and the biological sister of Su Qingrong, Su Qingyao naturally had her own princess manner. Today, she hosted a flower-viewing banquet, inviting noble ladies and dignitaries. Only then did I realize. Today is already the 15th. I suddenly felt uneasy. It seemed I had messed things up again, because after making plans with Xiao Huijing, he was supposed to pick me up today. What if he arrives and finds me gone? Are you worried and upset? I'm desperate to go back, but Xie Changfeng is seated in the men's section, and I can't find him. I sat absent-mindedly at the banquet. I didn't catch what my imperial sister said with her beaming face, nor the flattering words those around her were laughing about. Naturally, I also failed to notice the increasingly frosty look she directed at me. In my ears, the mocking and sarcastic remarks from others still lingered. Half a month ago, I saw young Master Xie going to Mingyu Hall, saying he wanted to personally carve a twinfish pendant. Presumably, this was meant as a birthday gift for Her Highness. If you ask me, Her Highness the Princess and young Master Xie are truly a match made in heaven. His talent complements her beauty. This should be celebrated as the grandest of joyous occasions. Someone glanced at me and sneered. Unlike certain people born under an unlucky star, bringing misfortune to mother and husband alike, who've now slunk back shamelessly beyond their station, why even return? Could they possibly believe they stand a chance against Her Highness, relying on nothing but that meager debt of gratitude from the Xie family? Do they really think young Master Xie likes her, likes a fool? These words sent the crowd into laughter. Su Qingyao lifted her chin, her eyes devoid of me. She raised her chin arrogantly. What belongs to this princess, no one can take away. If she can snatch it away, then consider it her skill. Some exclaimed with envy. Doesn't Her Highness mind? Su Qingyao snorted with laughter. I was born noble and disdain competing with lowly creatures for scraps. The words instantly drew waves of admiration from the crowd. At the same time, their gazes couldn't help but gleefully anticipate witnessing my embarrassment as the target of those words. But wait, is this about me? But I've already sneaked away, yet this princess's mansion is so vast, round and round I wander. In the end, I couldn't find the exit. Instead, I was startled by Su Qingyao, who had somehow appeared on garden path. Imperial sister, my heart nearly leapt into my throat. What are you doing here? Shouldn't she be at the banquet? But running into her was fortunate, so I asked, Sister, could you point me the way out? Xie Changfeng has gone mad, he won't let me leave. This was a hard-won opportunity I'd finally grasped, but Su Qingyao had changed. She no longer wore that spring breeze smile from the banquet. It was as if she couldn't comprehend my words at all, just staring coldly, looking at me with the same disdain and disgust as before. Su Qingwan, are you mocking me? Changfeng grows more distant from me. Yet he can't stay away from you. You're pleased with yourself, aren't you? You've finally taken what was mine, all these years, father's favor. The glory of being a princess, even Xie Changfeng's affection. Which of these wasn't something you envied me for? Now, after all your scheming, you've finally snatched something. She took step after step toward me. I retreated step by step. Elder sister, what are you talking about? I don't understand. The emperor's favor, the princess's glory, or Xie Changfeng's affection. I never thought to take them from you, since these things are voluntary to begin with. I don't seek their favor. What can't be taken by force won't be taken at all. Yet every time I sat in the corner, watching her cling to Father Emperor without restraint, free from the rigid palace protocols, the noble consort, Su Qingrong, and Xie Changfeng were all smiling at her. I'm just a little, only a little, homesick for mother, that's all, she sneered. Enough already. There's no one around now. Who are you pretending for? You must be feeling quite pleased with yourself. Xie Changfeng actually became so lovesick over you that he volunteered to take my place in the political marriage. Can't eat, can't sleep. Even after nearly having his legs broken by the Xie family, he still worried about whether you were safe. When the kingdom of Li fell into chaos and everyone avoided it like the plague, he couldn't wait to cross mountains and rivers to fetch you. He didn't let you die as a deposed crown princess in a foreign land. She narrowed her eyes and said, Su Qingwan, you're truly fortunate. Have I ever told you not to take what's mine? She had said it, so I knew her indifferent demeanor at the banquet was all an act, because whoever dares to take what belongs to her, she will make sure they meet a miserable end. When I was very young, I picked up the rattle drum she had discarded. She then had palace guards force me to kneel under the scorching sun for 2 hours. My mother concubine knocked her head until it bled, staining the stone floor crimson. She had just relented. Before I fainted and was carried away by my mother, she smashed the rattledrum to pieces and said to me, Su Qingwan, what's mine even if I discard it, destroy it, or no longer want it, you still have no right to take, because you're not worthy, but I've never taken anything from you. In the past, I would have been too timid and afraid to speak, but during my days away from the country, change had already taken root unnoticed. I stopped retreating and answered her directly. I have a husband, and it's not Xie Changfeng. If you fancy him, you might as well tell him, and you two can stay together forever. It's none of my concern. She halted mid-step, startled by my retort, yet I pressed on. Being brought back by Xie Changfeng wasn't my fault. I never wanted to return. It's not my fault that Xie Changfeng locked me up in the Xie household. I wanted to escape, if I'm clearly not the one at fault. Why aren't you confronting Xie Changfeng instead of coming after me? It's always been like this. Whenever Xie Changfeng upset her, she would take it out on me, always accusing me of seducing him and stirring up trouble. Yet I've done nothing wrong, and now you're blaming me again. Fingering the silver bracelet on my wrist, I spoke. Elder Imperial Sister, you cannot be so unreasonable. This was made for me personally by Xiao Huijing. Once you press the central jewel, poisoned silver needles will shoot out, he told me. RWN, if someday someone tries to harm you, don't hesitate, no matter who it is. Press it. I'll cover for you if anything goes wrong. Logically speaking, this silver bracelet should have been used when Xie Changfeng forcibly brought me to Darjin, but he brought too many men. There simply weren't enough poison needles to go around. I don't want to hurt Su Qingyao, not because I'm reluctant to part with her, but if I press down, I'd be killing the future crown prince's elder sister, the favored concubine's beloved daughter, even the emperor's eldest princess. Such a colossal blunder seems rather difficult to cover up. I hope Su Qingyao would be sensible at this moment, but she sneered as if humiliated. You and your mother are nothing but the lowliest ants in the palace, Su Qingwan, who gave you the audacity to threaten me, to lecture me. Her pretty face twisted into something ferocious as she lunged forward to strangle me, seething with hatred. Xie Changfeng, do you know Xie Changfeng told me he wouldn't propose to Father Emperor because the one he wants to marry is you. She cares most about saving face. If this matter were to become reality, all those flattering words at the banquet would turn her into the biggest joke. How could she possibly allow such a thing to happen? Her hand was about to touch my neck, my fingertips already resting on the jewel of the silver bracelet. At that very moment, she let out a startled cry, my vision blurred, and when I regained my senses, I had been pulled behind someone. Xie Changfeng. Su Qingyao clutched her wrist, bruised by the stone, her lovely face streaked with tears like pear blossoms in the rain. Compared to her usual arrogance toward me, her tears now seemed unwilling. Are you really siding with her? But you clearly told me that if not for your parents' orders, you'd have long been eager to cast her aside. There was a time when Xie Changfeng would panic whenever Su Qingyao cried like this. He would always comfort her and stay by her side, because she was usually so proud, rarely showing vulnerability, and Xie Changfeng would feel utterly remorseful. But at this very moment, Xie Changfeng remained expressionless, gazing at her indifferently. Your Highness, please behave with dignity. Behave with dignity, Su Qingyao laughed, her laughter filled with resentment. You abandoned me for a fool. How can you ask me to maintain my dignity? Have you forgotten? You said I was wise and virtuous, that you would marry me. Xie Changfeng didn't look at her. Instead, he caught me as I tried to slip away and led me off, his tone neither light nor heavy. Those were just childish words spoken at 7 years old. They shouldn't be taken seriously. Moreover, I've already done my utmost by sparing the princess from a political marriage. We're even now. Xie knows exactly who he wants to marry, just as I brought her here today. I hope your Highness will stop clinging to this matter. Su Qingyao glared at him, her expression terrifying but even more so filled with disbelief. She frantically shouted at Xie Changfeng's retreating figure. What's so great about that idiot? I am the most noble princess of Great Jin. My father is the son of heaven, my mother the most powerful woman in the imperial harem, and my brother the future crown prince. Xie Changfeng, how dare you abandon me for that fool? How dare you humiliate me like this? Xie Changfeng, you've betrayed me, you've betrayed me. The commotion was tremendous, alerting others at the banquet who came rushing over upon hearing the disturbance, only to see Su Qingyao completely losing her composure, utterly deranged. Xie Changfeng pulled me along as we headed toward the door. Suddenly, someone gasped behind their hand, the twin fish pendant. I looked down in surprise. Somehow, half of an exquisitely carved twin fish pendant had appeared at my waist. As I moved, it swung back and forth in midair. This isn't good. Xiao Huijing won't let me wear things of unknown origin, afraid there might be danger. I obediently raised my hand and untied the ribbon. It was a slip knot. Whoever tied it must have feared I'd notice. Settling for this compromise binding, so it came undone easily. The fish lost its support, swimming and swimming and swimming, finally crashed onto the ground, clear and melodious, shattered into pieces. Xie Changfeng's footsteps faltered momentarily, leaving only the swaying belt at his waist, came to a halt. In the Xie residence, I asked him, if you don't want to marry the princess, use me as your excuse. Now, can you let me go? Xie's parents had already given up on controlling him, because he declared that the only way to make him yield would be to beat him to death. But what parents would truly beat their own flesh and blood to death? He smiled bitterly. You think I brought you to the banquet just because I didn't want to marry the eldest princess and needed an excuse? My eyes clearly conveyed. What else? He seemed to have all the strength drained from his body, like a stray dog. You ask me why I keep you confined when I clearly adore the eldest princess. I know you won't believe anything I say, so I can only bring you before Her Highness and let her tell you herself that I've long understood where my heart truly lies. From beginning to end, the one in my heart has always been you. It's just that I was too proud, always unwilling to admit it before. His words frightened me. They even sent a chill down my spine, making me quickly step several paces away from him. You're talking nonsense. How could you possibly like me, if you liked me? How could you call me stupid every day? How could you forget me at the hunting grounds for the princess? And how could you make me do all the things she didn't want to do? That's because Xie Changfeng anxiously tried to explain, yet I had already uttered that impossible possibility. Moreover, I'm already carrying my husband's child. How could I possibly marry you? Are you saying that without this child, you could accept me again? A strange joy flashed through his eyes. I trembled. Clutching the silver bracelet, a sense of foreboding washing over me. Xie Changfeng, what are you doing? He approached me, a pill appearing in his hand as if from nowhere. Awen, don't be afraid, it'll be over soon. You'll have children again, our children. You're crazy, you're insane. He was strong, trained in martial arts. The pill was about to be forced into my mouth. With no retreat left, I could only clutch the silver bracelet desperately, closing my eyes as a single name filled my mind. Xiao Huijing, bang. Xie Changfeng's arm was slashed by a long sword, the wound so deep the bone was visible. The blood-stained sword that had been flung embedded itself straight into a pillar, swaying several times before finally stabilizing. The door had long been opened. I opened my eyes to look. The tall figure appeared travel-worn, his gentle face now tinged with icy coldness, while beside him, a flustered servant of the Xie family hastily spoke. Young master. We couldn't stop him. Xie Changfeng looked over in astonishment. Xiao Huijing crushed the pill that had rolled to his feet underfoot, his curved smile sending chills down one's spine. Excuse me, I've come to fetch my crown princess. He glanced at me, finally softening his gaze a little. Going home. I'm not afraid of him. I happily rushed over. Xiao Huijing, it's been a month since I last saw him, and I miss him dearly, yet I never expected him to be so true to his word. He had promised to come pick me up today. No matter where I was, he'd find me, held in my arms. Xiao Huijing seemed to return to his gentle and approachable demeanor, whispering softly, it's all right now. Meanwhile, Xie Changfeng and Xie's parents, who had rushed over urgently upon hearing the news, looked at him with disbelief. How could you possibly? Xie Changfeng was speechless. Alive? Everyone said that with the chaos in Li Kingdom, Xiao Huijing's chances of survival were slim. He was as good as dead, so in their eyes, Xiao Huijing should have been a dead man long ago. Unlike me, I never worried, because he told me himself that he could return alive and unharmed. I believe in him. He never lied to me. Your Highness the Crown Prince, what are you doing? Father Xie understood the gravity of the situation. If Xiao Huijing were dead, no one would care if I returned. But Xiao Huijing just didn't return. This crown princess of mine was actually whisked away by Xie Changfeng. Even when she came looking for me, she happened to catch him trying to slip me abortion medicine. The faces of Xie's parents grew paler the more they thought about it, yet when Xiao Huijing turned his gaze toward them, what he said was, "I suppose you too should address me as, Your Majesty." Boom, thunder rumbled across the sky. It was the harbinger of an approaching storm. The kingdom was in turmoil, with the emperor's life hanging by a thread. The second prince, Xiao Huaiyu, struck first. Wielding an imperial decree, he arrested Crown Prince Xiao Huijing, declaring the Crown Prince deposed and himself the new sovereign. Within the borders of a nation, turbulent waves churn ominously. At first glance, victory seemed decided, yet none anticipated the dormant ones bearing their claws. Against all odds, Xiao Huaiyu not only failed to ascend the throne, but suffered a crushing military defeat. Become a fugitive traitor, Xiao Huijing, the newly ascended emperor of Li Kingdom, carved his path to the throne with swords and bloodshed. This is bad. Father Xie knew the magnitude of this disaster. Frozen in place, Xiao Huijing didn't say another word, merely shielding me carefully as we walked toward the door. The wounded Xie Changfeng struggled to break free. The enraged patriarch Xie ordered his men to pin him down firmly. Stammering, he spoke word by word. Urban. I halted my steps. Under Xiao Huijing's inscrutable gaze, I guiltily hunched my shoulders. The silver bracelet on my wrist was unlocked. The poisoned needles were shot out, every single one.
Turns, dragging his family down with him. Is this what you call good fortune? Though I may be slow-witted, I'm not stupid. I'll take whatever you give me, virtuous consort. Su Qingyao hadn't expected me to talk back and flew into a rage. How dare you? Who gave you permission to speak to my mother in such a manner? I curled my lips and stiffened my neck. Huijing told me, now that I am the empress, no one else has the right to reprimand me. If anyone dares to, I should reprimand them back. If you insist on speaking, I still won't listen. You, the virtuous consort, pointed at me, trembling with rage. It was at this moment that the assassin appeared. The hunting grounds descended into chaos. A crowd wielding long swords and sabers came charging in. The imperial guards were mostly slaughtered. The casualties far exceeded those of ordinary assassinations. It was more like a rebellion. The womenfolk screamed in terror. Before those assassins could even get close to me, they were swiftly cut down by the highly trained shadow guards of Li Kingdom right before my eyes. Ever since Xie Changfeng accidentally whisked me away last time, Xiao Huijing has assigned significantly more guards. The hidden guards were numerous. There are more assassins. Seeing more hidden guards around me, noble consort pushed Su Qingyao toward me, but she herself got separated from us. After killing another assassin, a hidden guard shouted to me, "Your Highness, we'll hold them off. You must flee into the woods and hide." I didn't hesitate and ran as he instructed, because lingering fearlessly would only burden others further. Su Qingyao fled alongside me. She had always been delicate, her fair and tender skin never suffering any bruises. Now, trekking through this dense forest with its tangled thorns and branches, she was quickly covered in scratches. The pain made her cry out loudly. At this rate, it would be impossible not to be discovered. I wanted to abandon her and run in another direction, but she clung to me as if determined. "Su Qingwan, don't you dare think of leaving me behind. If you dare abandon me, I'll make sure Mother Consort and Father Emperor teach you a lesson when we return." She even tried to grab the hem of my robe, so I pressed the silver bracelet, and the poisoned needle pierced her wrist. She cried out in pain, finally turning to venom. "How dare you hurt me?" The words fell sharply. I stopped, because there was someone ahead. I recognized them. But it wasn't Xiao Huijing or Xie Changfeng, but rather, Xiao Huaiyu. Xiao Huaiyu was no longer the proud figure he once was. Instead, he looked utterly wretched, his face covered in scars. Spotting me, he raised his knife with venomous intent. "It's you." Xiao Huijing stole my throne, left me with barely a life to live, forcing me to flee like a sewer rat. Yet he hid his beloved woman and child so well. But no matter. Now you and the seed in your womb will also die beneath my blade. He raised his sword to strike me and Su Qingyao. With the poison needles in my silver bracelet exhausted, I tried to retreat. But Su Qingyao suddenly shoved me forward. "You want to kill her? Don't kill me." Whoosh! A long arrow pierced through Su Qingyao's arm, the very arm she'd used to push me. She screamed and collapsed to the ground. As for Xiao Huaiyu had already been pierced through the heart by an arrow. 2 arrows. RWN. Xiao Huijing threw down his bow and arrows, lifting me onto the horse's back. The horse galloped wildly, showing no intention of stopping. I turned back in shock. There lay Xiao Huaiyu collapsed in a pool of blood. while Xie Changfeng dismounted. In the end, he picked up Su Qingyao, whose arm had been pierced by an arrow, 3 arrows in total. Xiao Huijing shot 2 of them. One ended the life of his half-brother with his own hands. The other arrow made him frown with regret. The interval was too quick. I couldn't react in time, and failed to hit her heart. Fortunately, I'm unharmed. Yet Su Qingyao still didn't fare much better. Her hand was saved. But the poison needles inside caused double harm. From then on, even holding a cup of tea would make her tremble. How could Su Qingyao, who had always been proud, accept this? She screamed at me hysterically. Why did you come back? Why did you come back? I've already drugged the Crown Prince of Ligua's wine. He touched you, and now you're pregnant. Whether you marry him and get beaten to death or get abandoned in the cold palace, you should just endure it. But Su Qingwan, why did you have to come back? Xiao Huijing shielded me behind him, watching her madness with cold eyes. There was only Xie Changfeng. Xie Changfeng spoke in astonishment, as if meeting him for the first time, asking, "What medicine are you talking about?" Su Qingyao paused, no longer denying it. He laughed maniacally and said, "What does it matter now that I'm already like this? What if I tell you, that day, I lied to you, saying the Crown Prince of Li Kingdom was dead drunk. So you'd send Su Qingwan in, assuring you nothing would go wrong. But it was all fake, fake." Her beautiful face twisted into a terrifying grimace as she pointed at Xiao Huijing. "I drugged him, for half a month. Every nightfall, he'll be consumed by lust like poisoned with desire, unable to resist. So he'll definitely touch that idiot. You and that fool, it's absolutely impossible now." Xie Changfeng rushed forward abruptly, his eyes bloodshot. "You lied to me. Why did you lie to me?" "It's all because you keep wavering." Su Qingyao pushed him away disdainfully. "My things, Su Qingyao's things, even if they're lost or ruined, can never be given to others, let alone to a fool. Xie Changfeng, abandoning me for a fool is the greatest humiliation I've ever suffered. If I don't take action against her, how can I wash away this shame? All men in this world are the same, nothing but fickle creatures chasing after novelty. So Su Qingwan, you think he can't live without you? It's just love potion, nothing more." She watched my expression mockingly, waiting to see me make a fool of myself. Now that half a year has passed since the medicine took effect, he should be tired of it already. But I slowly began to speak. "I only consummated my marriage with Huijing 5 months ago. 7 months had already passed since he was drugged. Far more than half a year. My voice is not loud, but the scene was as silent as death. Xiao Huijing was watched by others, their gazes slowly traveling downward from him. He sneered. "Owen is already carrying my child. Then he wasn't impotent after all. But if he wasn't impotent, doesn't that mean for those 6 months, he endured it all while being constantly aroused?" For a moment, the men present looked at him with admiration. Xie Changfeng and Su Qingyao broke up. Su Qingyao was punished with house arrest. No end date was specified, and Xiao Huijing and I are preparing to depart for Li Kingdom tomorrow. The new emperor has just ascended the throne. Had it not been for the accident, we should have returned long ago to stabilize the court. On the night before our departure, Xie Changfeng came to see me. He's truly strange. Now every time you see me, all you say is "I'm sorry." This time was better because he said something else. It says, "AWN, actually, you liked me before, didn't you?" I am calm yet perplexed. "Why do you ask?" "I've told you before." "I told you, beneath the fireworks that night." What I said was, "I like Xie Changfeng." He took 2 steps back, utterly devastated, laughing bitterly at himself. Turns out I couldn't see others clearly, nor myself. The one who's always been in my heart was clearly you. I shook my head. "No, it wasn't." "You clearly have feelings for the royal sister." "No, that's not true. What I feel for her is merely admiration. It was just an excuse to avoid confronting my feelings for you. Yet you were willing to send me to a strange man's chamber for her sake. Everyone says I'm foolish, but I know this isn't how one loves another." He panicked. "Because I was deceived. I thought Xiao Huijing was merely drunk, not drugged. I believed that if you went to the kingdom of Li, at worst you'd be treated coldly like here, but unharmed, still clothed and fed, still safe." Me, if it was truly safe, then why didn't you let the elder princess go? Wasn't it just about being treated coldly, still clothed and fed, still perfectly safe? Wasn't that what you claimed? He was left speechless. Despair rendered him mute. Later, he and Su Qingyao still couldn't be together. Poisoned and punished, his body weakened, making the path of a military officer impossible to pursue. The path of civil service is rugged and arduous. Moreover, he stubbornly refused to marry Su Qingyao, and Su Qingyao married another scion of a noble family. Because the emperor fell gravely ill, The emperor had many sons. At this time, what Su Qingrong needed most was the support of court officials. To secure the allegiance of a certain prominent noble family, Su Qingyao thus married that scion of nobility. It was the virtuous consort herself who gave her blessing. I don't know whether she found happiness afterward, for in less than 2 years, she was granted a white silk cord. Not just her, the virtuous consort and Su Qingrong met the same fate. It was none other than the failed succession struggle, where the 5th prince, who had achieved illustrious military feats, emerged victorious from this bloody purge. As part of Su Qingrong's faction, he couldn't possibly let them live, not to mention. Back then Xiao Huaiyu was only able to kill the imperial guards and assassinate those royal nobles because he had colluded with Su Qingrong. No wonder Su Qingyao clung to me so desperately, made such a fuss, pushed me out, from the very beginning. Her intention was to remind Xiao Huaiyu of my whereabouts, and if everything had gone according to plan, His Majesty would have also been on that assassination list. But His Majesty didn't die peacefully either. Su Qingrong and virtuous consort failed to kill him during that assassination attempt, so they resorted to administering a torturous slow-acting poison instead. The agony was unbearable. March had barely breathed her last. This became crucial evidence for the new emperor to issue their death warrant. Though the Xie family hadn't taken sides, Xie Changfeng's past entanglement with the Grand Princess kept dragging them into trouble. A faint aura of decline began to settle over them. These were all things I saw in the secret correspondence between my 5th imperial brother, or rather, the current emperor of Great Jin, and Xiao Huijing. During the few days Great Jin spent fetching me, he had already chosen his future ally. His demands were merely two: noble consort Su Qingrong and Su Qingyao shall not live, while Xie Changfeng shall die a wretched death. Soon came news of the fatal illness and demise of the Xie family heir. All these years, he had strived tirelessly for greater advancement, but no matter how he tried, he remained a minor official, unable to rise or fall. The recklessness of his youth rashly ruined his official career. Impulse also dragged down his family's honor. Until his dying breath, he was still murmuring the name Owen, his hand clutching a seemingly ordinary protective talisman. The day I heard of his death, I snapped out of my daze after 2 seconds and nodded slightly. Oh. Xiao Huijing stole glances at my expression. Yes, I gave birth to Akild, tiny. Xiao Huijing said it resembled me more. That night, he was uncharacteristically drunk. He told me about the first time he saw me. Apart from my wet nurse, I've always been alone. That night, dazed with passion, I thought if anyone dared enter to harm me, I'd take them down with me. But you saw me. I giggled. He lowered his gaze, looking at my smiling face, and said, "Yes, I saw you." The coolness that fell upon his forehead was like sweet spring water. His eyes shone bright as stars. Yet the stars held only his reflection. Enchanted by him, lost in a daze, he had actually already thought of spending his entire life with her. The end.